What's up, podcast? Welcome to another episode. I'm your host, Ryan Lucas. Excited to bring you this episode 26, Powerline Podcast. It's with Don Red Dog McLennan. Now, some of you out there might recognize Red Dog. If you do, you'll recognize him probably if you're part of the Quanta family and have spent any time at the Lazy Q Ranch doing barehand training or some sort of training there. Chances are you've been taught by him, and if you have, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say he is a world-class trades trainer, lineman. He's been in the industry for a long time, performed pretty much every aspect of it. This is a great episode. He shares his story of growing up as a second-generation lineman with his dad on the right-of-ways and then moving along, progressing through his career. I think you're going to really enjoy this episode. Before we get into that, though, special announcement for you guys. Finally, been working on this a while, but I'm going to have some merch available for you guys. So come up with a couple designs. Going to launch some t-shirts and hats. So stay tuned for the announcement on Instagram and have a look at my website. Everything will be up there soon. I'll have that posted and ready for purchase soon, hopefully on my website. The website is www.powerlinepodcast.com. So check that out. I've got a little bit of other stuff on the website too, some things to read and such. So just go check it out. Good photos. Like I said, stay tuned on Instagram. That's where I'll be making the announcement when the merch actually goes live. But I think you guys are going to be stoked on it. Couple cool designs, and I've been toying with it for a while and stoked to get it out to you. So along with that is the sponsor of this episode is Tallman Equipment. Let's hear a quick word from Tallman before we get into it.
Trust. It's hard to earn and easy to lose. That's why at Tallman Equipment Company, we work hard every day to do the right thing for our customers and everyone that puts their trust in us. Because at the end of the day, what really matters is who we help get the job done right and get back home. Trust. Tallman Equipment.
Well, there you have it. You can hit up Tallman Equipment at tallmanequipment.com. And let's get into episode 26 of Powerline Podcast. Have a good day, guys. Red Dog, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited about this episode because you don't often get to talk to men like you that have had such a lengthy career in the trade and as passionate and energetic about the trade still after, as long a career as you have had in it, you still keep a zest and a passion for it, and you live it still to this day. You live and breathe Linework. So I'm excited to hear a little bit of your history and some of the things you've done and been a part of in your career so far. So welcome to the show, and thanks for coming on.
Let's roll.
All right. So let's start I like to start at the beginning, kind of give people context of your life. So where were you from? Maybe where were you born and raised?
Born in Coquitlam, born in Vancouver, and then grew up in Coquitlam. But before that, my father was a lineman, so my early years were wherever he was working. That's where we were living, and that's been a few different places. I have memories of living in Squamish, and actually BC Electric House before it became BC Hydro. And my dad was a district lineman there in Squamish, and we moved to Coquitlam, and he was shopped out of an old district there called Sapperton, which became Coquitlam probably about 35 years ago.
Did your dad, was Linework in the family prior to your old man, or are you second generation?
Second generation, yeah. My father's father was a paper maker.
Oh, cool. What did that look like? Down here in the Lower Mainland as well?
No, he actually worked all over pretty much eastern Canada and up and down the western seaboard here in Washington, Portland, and up in Ocean Falls, and ended up in Port Alberni is where he finished up.
My dad was a lineman as well. Like I've said on the show a few times, and it was something that I wasn't even sure that I was going to do until after high school. Kind of got slapped on the side of the head and said, "Hey, kid, get a trade under your belt. You're silly not to," and made a decision to do it, and really never looked back after I made the decision. What was it like for you? Did you kind of always really kind of want to be that, or aspire to be what your father was, or how did you fall into that, becoming a lineman?
Yeah, it was pretty sure, just being, he was a construction lineman. He was pioneering the early 500 lines that went through where you come from, Williams Lake. He was there 64, 65. That's where he actually started there with Fishback and Moore. But my early days, like holidays, summer holidays and Easter holidays, wherever he was working is where we, as a family, we spent time. And then as you get a little bit older, those kind of jobs, there was early years where there's helicopters flying everywhere. So as a kid, you see that. And you see a lot of the guys. Back in those days, it was probably mostly even more than 50% of the linemen were from the States. So there's guys with great stories. And as a young guy getting out in a job there as a kid, like, you're still a teenager, riding around in trucks and helicopters, it's pretty hard not to think down the road that that's probably what you probably want to do.
Being exposed to, so I haven't really talked to anybody yet that has had some family in the early days, like almost slim to lineman era, building big transmission lines, like you said, it times then versus times now, and like things that you might have been able to go, your dad would take you out on the right of way as a kid, and you get away with things like flying in a helicopter or riding on the truck or hanging out with the crews. Like, what was it kind of like out on a big transmission line right away back in those days, from what you can remember?
Just my memories of watching guys work back then was so I'm talking like probably mid-late 60s, so you're pretty impressionable. But what I do remember is the fitness level. These guys were in good shape, and maybe when you're a kid, everybody looks bigger and stronger than you, but they were loud, they were vocal, and they're young guys. Like my old man, when he went out there, I think was mid-30s, and they were already calling him Grandpa.
Oh, really?
Back then, yeah. But nobody wore a hard hat. Some guys wear hard hats in a hole, like places where they're exposed to it, but it was generally just the leanest amount of equipment you needed to get yourself in a position to do the work. That was probably something I remember.
So when you made a decision to get into line work, what was that like right after high school, or how did that go?
It was, that's interesting because I was probably like you. I was a decent hockey player, and I was thinking I might be able to have a career playing professional hockey. So I kind of pursued the junior hockey stuff and, trained for that. But I guess the light come on for me that wasn't going to work, because when you're 18 and you're trying out for junior hockey teams, and there's guys that are 18 in the NHL already, so you kind of realize that, maybe that ain't going to happen.
That was similar for me too. Yeah. I tried the junior route, and I just looked at the odds and weighed them, and just made the decision to pull the pin.
Yeah,
move on with life.
I think I was even looking already in Europe and stuff like that. I think I could. I knew guys who were over there, but I didn't. I just ended up, with the old man in Linework, and I just told him, like, what do I got to do? And that's where I got started. Just went and, ended up working for Hydro, got a job in a diesel construction crew, and just doing that and trying to figure out how to get into Linework, and, applying for apprenticeships and getting interviews, and during the interview, them telling you need to get on a line crew, you need to be around line crew, you need to get a commercial driver's license and air brake endorsement. So, everything they told me that I need to do, I did. And then there's another interview, I think 6 months later, and I hadn't made any progress on the driver's license or getting onto a crew. But I did, was taking courses in electricity and just trying to get down the road that way. And I guess after that, I soon got laid off, and I went and got my commercial driver's license and got hired back on and got very quickly onto a line crew, like as a grunt. And actually, I was the last permanent groundman bid in BC Hydro. I was the last bulletin groundman back in 74. Yeah, 74 it would have been in Port Alberni.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
When you got, what did the trade like, what did it look like for you in the beginning, in those beginning years? Like you just said, lots of differences, obviously, between then and now. So I kind of want to, over the course of this conversation, kind of talk about the then and nows and what you've seen over your career. So when you first kind of started, it seems like there's differences, but it seems like a lot of things are the same. Like what you're just saying about getting into the trade, and I'm still telling young people today, telling them on my posts on Instagram or in this podcast to, do things to separate yourselves from the guys beside you. Like get your commercial driver's license, go get some training, some extra things, do the extra things to separate yourself. Sounds like you're doing the same similar thing, even back then.
Even back then, it was the same thing. It was competitive. You just didn't walk into an apprenticeship. The fact that my father, and like you said, your father as well, that was definitely a leg up. My father had a super good reputation, so that helped me a lot that way. But it was still, that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough to get you in the door without doing anything. You had to separate yourself. That's a good way of putting it. Like had to make yourself into an asset that somebody was looking at, investing time and money in you for an apprenticeship. That hasn't changed at all.
As your career started to progress, did you immediately find things that you enjoyed more than others and kind of take one path over another after apprenticeship, and as your line career started to go, like more distribution or transmission or underground, or what did you kind of?
During that time with the apprenticeship, and I was with the utility, BC Hydro, it was almost strictly distribution. The hide up in a small place. I started in Hope for a year, and it was, mostly single phase and a lot of trouble up and down the Fraser Canyon. But it was an excellent place to work. I actually went back and worked there as a journeyman there just after I topped out. So distribution mostly, but as soon as, that was in the mid-'70s, late 70s, there's still a lot of 500 kV construction going on, and just from watching my dad and being around that as a kid in the summertime, that's where I wanted to go. Like it was basically, I topped out and I was
on the steel.
I was going after that construction work.
That's when most of the 500 kV lines were most of the ones were constructed in British Columbia, right? I would call that near the tail end of it. It was the bulk of them were going, 64, 65. That the two come down, right from the dam there. We got Site C going up there right now, but all that GMS down to Prince George, down to that corridor, right down to the coast. Was what they were building in those days, and there was. There's so many different sections of it, and they actually built through the Pine Pass. Believe it or not, they built that in the wintertime. Really?
They didn't shut it down for the winter. Like they spend more time moving snow around than.
No kidding.
Yeah, pretty cold temperatures too.
The Pine Pass is just for people listening. It's a section of mountains. It's not even very long.
It's the Rocky Mountains that you're coming across.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it must cut straight across them because it's. I remember driving through the Pine Pass. I've only done it a few times, and I've worked on those lines that you're talking about. And it seemed like a real short section, relative to a long mountain drive or something.
Pretty much, you'd come across
20 miles or something.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You come out of the foothills there, and there's dead end towers right there. I've changed insulators, I've done barehand work right there, and it heads straight up. It's such a steep span that the insulators at that dead end tower actually reversed. To keep the
keep the snow from
keep the weather off. Yeah.
Wow.
And I would say you're right. It probably through the Rockies where it's really intense, and I worked like you. I worked through there before, and that you're probably looking at about, I'd say probably maybe 10 miles before it sort of levels off as you're coming down into Mackenzie on that interior plateau there.
So you stepped into transmission and kind of never looked back from that? It's kind of been your heart and soul?
Well, yes and no. Like I spent this every summer. It's kind of different now, but every summer there's a big project going someplace, and I tried to get on, through the union hall, get out onto those jobs, and sometimes you couldn't clear out early. 1980, I didn't get out on a 500 job. I spent working construction. I ended up in a camp working distribution, building a mine up in north of Stewart. I can't even recall the place.
That's
right
all
now.
right. Just up below below the Alaska border, right?
Alaska's right there, and that was quite a unique job because it was union camp, and there's to pick every different labor group that was in there, and we were linemen, and being linemen, we drove our own trucks, so the Teamsters were pissed off. We operated our own equipment, so the operating engineers were pissed off. We backfilled our own poles, so the laborers were pissed off. So everybody in the camp hated us. And plus, it didn't hurt that we were starting at 6 in the morning and knock off at 10 o'clock at night. We were working, just unlimited hours and making money like crazy. So, yeah, we were pretty much hated there, and there's only 5 of us in there, so there's a few fist fights and stuff along the way. But it was good. That was a good summer for work-wise, and just kind of getting back into the distribution. And, I met some pretty cool guys in there that I, kept in track with over the years.
What has been, so throughout your career, you've bounced back and forth a little bit between distribution and transmission, so to say. And I know from my experience with you, you've always been incredibly, not concerned, but attentive on the procedures and the trade's craft of line work and being a professional and really perfecting, whether it is procedures or tooling or methods of doing things. Has that been something that was learned the hard way, or is that kind of something you've always tried to do throughout your careers? Because I've just noticed with some people I've worked with, some people just have that don't give a shit attitude, and they just use the thing that's provided. And, maybe that's not even bad. Like, they just use the thing that's provided, do it in the way that's supposed to be done, that somebody's given them a procedure to execute. And they don't put any extra into it. But I've noticed working with you, you're always thinking about the thing that you could do to that tool to make it more efficient or better or safer, the way you could build this procedure out to make it better or safer. Is that something that's always been?
I'm going to say no, but I do think that, throughout my apprenticeship, and we've probably all been exposed to the same, I worked around some just terrific mentors and journeyman linemen that really got me going the right way, and I've always had a pretty good work ethic. And one thing I will say about an apprenticeship is you don't always get to work with amazingly good people. Sometimes you work with people that are brutal tradesmen. They're awful. So in those, and probably everybody's been around it, you kind of got to pull your horns in and kind of take the shit that comes with it. But you can learn from not doing it the right way. If you know in the back of your mind what the right way is, just kind of roll with that for a while. But don't learn how to. It's okay to understand what the wrong way is and don't repeat it. And then the other part of that, like you say, is as time goes on, you just, I think from working with good people and, having decent equipment and understand how to use it and treat it with respect, because there's not an unlimited supply. And at some point you become a journeyman, and, not that far after you're mentoring people as well. So try to take what I learned and just kind of pass that on. And the other part, I think, like you say, the training aspect, later on when I was running like transmission crews and doing barehand work, I found that the more you get people in all different aspects and all different positions of what you're doing, whatever your job is, you're going to have a real good, everybody likes to do one thing. And everybody on a crew usually has one thing that they're really good at. And that was cool. And everybody had their place. I used to let that happen. But I used to roll guys through all the time. And I used to take a lot of pleasure, I won't say pleasure, but pride. Like if I had to go away on a different project and I left my crew for, 2 weeks at a time or whatever, and I come back and they hadn't skipped a beat and everything kept rolling, I did my job.
It was a good indication.
Yeah.
I think that's important, and I do talk about that a lot. And a lot of the guests that I have had on have talked about that. It's something that I've recognized it on social media a lot, because you get comments constantly, and you get opportunity to get feedback on different ideas that you throw out there. And some of the feedback I've been getting back lately is a lot to do with people in our industry, either both sides of it, not giving a shit, not being tradesmen, and myself and the guests I've had on are really trying to promote, I want to say bring back the tradesman, but like really push that tradesman mentality out there. Like, you're a tradesman. You need to, respect that, do your best to make things, like take pride in your craft, right? Like, you build things with your hands. You're part of an industry that is a trade, and you're part of a group of people. There's only a few of us. There's carpentries, masoners, like plumbers. You're part of a group of people that get to build things with your hands. And I think some people are taking that and going, oh, it's just a job. And then you get the other side of it that are like, this is something important, and we need to maintain that importance. And it sounds like you've always been that kind of mindset anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think, we around here we talk, and and just working with the group I'm working with here with Altec right now. But like, professionalism is in our trade. If a true professional is, you're a craftsman. You've refined your craft, and you've mentored people, and you try and be as professional as you can. And like, it's not something in Linework, maybe we talk about it more now, but there are some real duds out there, and and I don't know what we can do with that. You gotta make those people aware that they need to be better. Like, we've got a real good trade, and we as a professional, we can really promote our trade in amazing ways. I don't have a whole lot of time for people that talk big, but they aren't that professional. Like, the true professional is a guy that doesn't, you wouldn't even know in his street clothes doing something different that what he does. A lot of guys are, maybe that aren't the professional, that like to view themselves as those guys. They're kind of more like wannabes, and I don't know. Like, it's
you need to show up to work put together, right? Like, put together and proud of what you do, and representing a trade, a lifestyle, brotherhood, like everything that you want to label it, you're representing that. In my mind, that's the way I see it. You're representing that when you go to work as this person. That's the way I see it. And I'm not trying to make everybody see it that way, but I think that that's something that linemen really, a good portion of us anyway, really like that about our trade and our craft, is we like being linemen, and we like that label, and we want to represent it. So it's hard for some of us to see some people not representing and just going about it like it is just another job, or maybe even less than that.
I completely agree. I don't, like I say, I don't have all the time for those kind of people. We both seen those kind of people. I think, we got to do our best in this trade to keep attracting, the right kind of people, and do the vetting that's going to make sure that happen. If we get guys that are halfway through their apprenticeship and they are not those kind of people, I think we gotta pull a pin on them and bring somebody fresh in that's going to have those ideals and want to be that kind of professional. It's and for the most part, I think we're there.
Yeah. Being involved in resourcing over the last 5 years, I've noticed that it's hard for people, but like you just said, I think we need to identify if somebody's just not cutting it and move them out of the career paths. Like, it's hard to do because you get, you join a union or you get caught in the system, and if the people don't want to leave themselves, it's hard to get them out once they're in. Maybe you get them out of the company or off your crew or out of the company, but they're still in the trade. But we need to do better together to identify who these people are and work with them to get themselves out of this industry, really, because it just hurts us all in the end. I don't see enough of it. Like a brand new guy will come in and he, everybody's saying, hey, this guy's no good. This guy's no good. But they're not speaking up to the right people or doing the right things themselves, putting their name behind that and writing it down and identifying that the guy's no good and he's going to hurt himself or somebody else. And so he ends up becoming a lineman and hurting himself or somebody else.
Yeah, I agree. To me, we need to identify that. People need to, as linemen ourselves, we need to nip that in the bud or just stop that from happening. But the people I see in a trade that probably shouldn't be there, that it could be a number of things, but attitude, lack of professionalism, just lack of workmanship, lack of let's say grounding, equal potential. Those kind of guys, in my mind, and historically I've seen it, they don't ever hurt themselves. They hurt somebody else, and that's what. There's something about those kind of guys where they're bulletproof and immune to it, but they affect everybody around them in sometimes an incredibly negative way.
What are some sample or examples, or if you have any, of some things you've seen out there that were done totally wrong, or maybe you were involved in an incident or something like that, or a learning lesson, something you could give?
You'd have to give me. You should have prepared me for that one.
No worries.
If something comes up, I'll bring it up.
So as you progress through line work, you were drawn. I know a bit about your background and drawn to the energized world. No doubt, working energized power lines is the primo of our trade craft, and you got into some barehand work you just talked about, working with helicopters, things like that. You talk about some of the jobs you maybe done doing that and how you got into that?
Yeah. Just going to back you up for a second. Like, I feel the same way you do about energized work and maybe barehand being a primo, but there's a lot of guys out there that don't view it that way. In their world, what they're doing, whatever it is, gloving, like, there's guys that are amazing tradesmen.
Sure. I should correct that a little bit.
And
I didn't mean energized work as in just barehand work. I meant energized as sticking or gloving or working energized or power lines in any level, not just barehand work. Being that kind of, I guess construction and all that's it's the same level, but yeah, that's where I was kind of going with that. You worked your way into some energized work. And I've kind of created a little bit of a path within that for yourself.
Yeah. It was the first time I bonded on barehand, and it was, I think it's 44 kV. I was in Ontario working for K-Line, and we just had to impact the corner closed, and they didn't do much sticking out there. And I had never, we did a lot of glove work out there at the time, and of course coming from BC, a lot of stick work, but they didn't want to combine this. Like, sticking and ampacts is actually pretty easy, but that's not something that they did. So me and the foreman on the crew, he said, we're going to barehand this. And I said, yeah, I'm all in. Let's, absolutely. And so, we bonded on and pretty much there was no suit or nothing. We just bonded on and just closed that. Kept our limits of approach, all the things that go along with barehand. We were perfectly safe doing it. It wasn't an incredibly high voltage. I don't remember getting any kind of a bite. And to be honest, in those days, I think we had liner in a bucket, the metal liner, and the bond, and that's all I recall. And that's quite a while ago as well. And then kind of that was it for that. And then I think I was out in Ontario for another 2 years after that, and then came back to BC. And then barehand kind of started cranking up in the early 90s with BC Hydro. And a buddy of mine on Vancouver Island was running the transmission crew over there, Dave Lucier. and they were doing some work just south of where I was in Dawson Creek, up behind, just in and around Chetwynd. And they were, I think it was dampers they were replacing. So I went, talked to my boss, and he said, yeah, go check it out. So I went down there, and I got to spend a couple of days with those guys. I got to bond on and do a little bit of work there, which, I wasn't on that transmission crew. These days, you probably couldn't get away with that. But, I knew all them guys, we all kind of come up at the same time together. So,
what was your earliest recollection of Barehand work and where it was kind of being done and where you kind of first heard about it? Or was it something you heard about like right away?
Well, I still got some of the old hot stick manuals from BC Hydro from the 60s. They actually, BC Hydro back then actually did a little bit of barehanding. And all them guys are not around anymore, I'm sure. But I still got the manual, the black and white, where there's a section on barehand in that manual. Huh. So I don't recall exactly what they did. And then so that's probably my earliest recognition, the fact that people were doing that. And, and that kind of just, stayed stagnant until I was out in Ontario. You always heard about it,
yeah.
And me, like you, I always wanted to do it, but I was just never in a place or around it enough to, for that to happen. But after the early 90s here, when I got out with that crew I was talking about, I kind of made it a mission after that to get myself in a place where that would happen.
That's a good statement too. I always kind of did that in my career too. Is like if there's something that you wanted to go for and do in your career, one of those boxes that you wanted to tick off of things you wanted to do as a lineman, I found that you had to make that happen for yourself and really work towards that. Do the things that you need to do to position yourself to get there and do that type of work.
Oh yeah, I mean that's like a lot of things. Like nothing, unless you're incredibly lucky, just to happen to be in the right place at the right time. You gotta, like you say, you gotta put yourself in a place, put your time in, and just make it happen. Like it.
And to be patient while you do it too.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It don't happen overnight.
So what kind of jobs? I know you've done some overseas stuff and you've done some other barehand work and energized work and helicopter work. Maybe explain a little bit more types of things you've done and places you've been doing them.
So BC. I guess I left BC Hydro in 2009, and I hooked up with utility in the Fraser Valley here, actually PEI. They're still in business now. And then they very shortly became Henkels and McCoy, and basically they had they picked up some helicopter platform work to change spacers on the 230 and the 360 in BC, and they had no barehanders, no nothing, and basically I got propositioned with creating a like a barehand environment course, do the training and pick my guys, train the guys I want, and we ended up I think initially we started with 8 guys, and then the last year I was out there was 3 of us, and then 4 of us doing basically a helicopter platform work with Henkels. So I spent kind of 2 summers with those guys doing that, and then and things kind of went sour with those guys after that, and I actually had a contract right after that over in Malaysia. I went over there and did with another fella, Ryan Monk, a BC Hydro guy out of Kamloops. He's a trades training instructor there now. We went over to Malaysia and did, we were over there for about a month, training TNB, Tenaga National Bharat was utility. And I think we trained probably about 20 guys over there up to do barehand work. And it was, it's a little sketchy because a lot of these guys have, they don't have the apprenticeship or the skills that we have here and a real understanding of line work. They're, I won't say real new to it, but, at the end, and some of them had some experience before, we were confident that these guys could safely do the work, with the time they put in. And there was a few that we felt that weren't there either. But that was my first experience of international work. And we were doing Barehand. We would bond on and work right with these guys doing different stuff. How we got over there is a contractor built a line, and part of the contract with T&B is the contractor had to hire somebody, which was us, to show these guys how to use. I think A.B. Chance was involved with their tools, how to use the tools on their data. Everything they had there, we had to show them how to work to do Barehand work on their system.
Oh, that's neat.
So it was pretty good, actually. It was a good job.
What does it look like putting training like that together? Like who propositioned you to do that?
That was at the time. That was EITI, Electrical Industry Training Institute in BC here.
So they kind of solicited you, and you kind of worked under their banner, or
yeah,
okay.
That was EITI. Like I say, I kind of left where I was. I told him that's what I was interested in doing. He said, yeah, go ahead. And then when I come back there, that was before Christmas, and after Christmas, I could see things weren't going in the direction I wanted with Henkel. So I left, and actually I came over to QES right in the new year. I hooked up with them.
I do have quite there's a big audience out there that listen to the show that are in the Quanta world, and more than likely would recognize you. I know I've got a couple comments on Instagram of people that know you and say you're a pretty solid dude, recognize you from the Quanta world, and working at the Lazy Q as an instructor there, and the various other things you did for them. And I want to talk about that a little bit, but was this your first kind of this trip to Malaysia and with EITI? Is that your first kind of experience with training and moving more into like a training atmosphere?
Yeah, yes and no. With when I was with the utility, my last, I think, 5 years with them as a trades training instructor. So I did Barehand training, and we did a lot of hot sticking with Hydra too. So I have a real good hot stick background, especially 230, 500. I can just hot stick the shit out of that stuff. And now with 500, with everybody Barehand and even 230, that hot sticking aspect of the trade, at least here in BC, is dying a pretty quick death. There's not that many guys around that hot stick 500 anymore.
Yeah, no, I know when you trained us to change insulators, it is definitely a technique and a skill too. Yeah. It took some time. There's a big learning curve there.
There sure was. That's actually a cool story, because I remember, after we, when I was with you guys, because I come to QES, we all did that Barehand class together in 2012 in April. And then we split off and went up to do that contract, and we in the class we were using rope access and that was a method that we ended up using on that job. And I remember with I think we ended up with 3 teams going, 3 different crews. But I remember the first day with all you guys and do the tailboard, get up there, and so I'm on a tower kind of showing you guys, and I think that first day it was like a 10 or a 12-hour day, and we got two strings changed. Yeah. And I'm in my mind going, holy fuck,
this is going to be a long summer.
but you know what? The next day we come out, we knocked out that third one real quick, and I think we cleaned off the next tower, so we got 4 the next day. Yeah. And then then the next day after that we got a tower, and then on to I think maybe half another tower, and then that was at the time. Then we split into 2 crews. So we'd work enough spans apart that nobody was affecting each other. And for me, I'd go up in the air and hook up with your crew, and then with Rob Jr.'s crew down the road. And then I do remember, it was about a week and a half later, I go up in the air, and honestly, you guys being linemen, you guys had perfected it so good that I was just slowing it down and getting in your way. So it's kind of like the old Kung Fu movie. It was like, I guess my work here is done.
We got together a couple times in the evening, and we were just like, we gotta figure this out quickly. We ended up doing 3 towers per crew, Yeah, shop to shop, and
Yeah.
with a lot of driving and
Yeah.
such like that in a 10-hour day. In the end, we got pretty proficient at it there.
Sure did. I was impressed because I know from my Barehand experience, I knew you guys were easily capable. 2 is kind of what it was a benchmark of it. We should be able to get 2 a day either, easy. And when you start getting 3 a day, and honestly, if the days were longer, there was more there as well. But it was pretty cool for me to watch that and just see how, as I get out, in weeks and months later, just on each individual crew, and just see how efficient. I think linemen are probably the best efficiency experts in the world, like figuring out it's not about running and doing things quick. It's eliminate wasted movements and really good planning. And what you guys are doing. And the other cool thing about that for you guys out there is we weren't using bucket trucks. This is rope access. Basically, we ran with two crew cabs and 2 strain pulls, a hot yoke, a cold yoke, a shunt, and our barehand ropes.
That's
and
right.
we had 350-foot or 105-foot barehand trucks that sat in the yard and didn't move.
It's amazing what linemen can do with just some ropes and wheels. That's what Robbie had always said. Yeah, just a couple ropes and wheels, and it's amazing what we can pull together. And so true. You moved, like you said, we moved into working with QES, Quanta Energized Services, and Quanta, and working on their training facility down in LaGrange, Texas, the Lazy Q there, helping QES and Quanta develop their Energized programs, various other programs. You want to talk a little bit about that experience and what it was like working with Quanta and working at Lazy Q and being involved in some of that?
Early days with Quanta, we did a lot of our barehand training was out of Kansas City, right with KCP&L there was a coal-fired generating plant there. God damn, I can't remember what that was called. I was just down there doing some research about 6 months ago. And then we would basically do barehand training all over the place. Like, I know 7 years ago, just this month, I was down in Delaware doing a class down there with MJ. But pretty much all over the East Coast and through the Midwest. And then when Quanta finished the Lazy Q, I think 2000, I don't know, maybe it's 15 or 16. Pretty much almost all of the barehand training has been done that Quanta does has been out of that training center, and it's
describe the center a little bit for people that might not even know about it.
So it's basically we've got a substation fed by distribution underbuild, and it steps it up to 2 different voltages, 345 and 69 kV, and we've got a 345 line built to various different monopoles, lattice towers, monopole dead ends.
You guys have done special types of structures for, like, say, a project that you're going to work on, like D-phase or something like that, where guys could train on a specific structure?
We've actually got the D-phase set up in there for, I think, about 2 years now that's been in place. And I don't think I haven't been around there for a couple months if they haven't done that now. But the idea was exactly that. If there was a client or one of our Quanta operating units had a unique situation, energized work that we could actually build and mimic what that would be and get the guys up to speed and hit the ground running when they got out to that contract. So that was always talked about. I'm not sure if that's been done, but the capabilities are certainly there.
Run us through a little bit more of what's on site there. Like, how big is the property and what's kind of...
It's 3,300 acres. It's right on the Colorado River, one of the about 500 different Colorado rivers in the southern states. Not the big one.
That one.
And it's an old, I think, a farmstead there. And so we've got the energized training lines we talked about, and we've got, so basically we've mimicked, we've got distribution wood, we've got wood, 69, 138, 230, all mimicked up. It's only energized at 69, but the construction is take your pick on the voltage. The 345 is always 345, and we actually have a couple of structures that are built to 500 kV standards for doing 500 kV work. So whatever barehand training we would be doing, we might be mimicking that we're working on 230, even though it might only be energized at 69. But the 345 is what it is, and if for those that you haven't been there, it's not a loaded line. It's just the voltage is there, but it's still a pretty good crack when you bond on and off that 345. I was kind of surprised about that. So in addition to that, obviously there's a campus and there's all kinds of other training that goes on down there. They just finished building a mechanic shop. We've got a campus and there's all kinds of, I don't know how many rooms they got down there, but for example, a Barehand class would run 2 weeks. We'd run with about 12 trainees, and each trainee would bunk up with potentially somebody they knew from the operating unit they're from, or a total stranger. But it's 2 to a room. It's a real military style and feel to it. It's you're there for training, so there's not a whole lot of, there's a lake there for fishing. There's a few extracurricular activities.
You got a pretty nice gym set up and games room and things like that.
Yeah,
right?
You got a terrific gym, and for those that take advantage of it, and shuffleboard, pool tables, all that kind of stuff. And they're running a lineman program down there right now, which is kind of pre-apprentice lineman program that's running just at the same time that we're running the Barehand and hot stick classes. So there's different times where there's if you count the pre-apprentices as linemen, there's 40, there could be 40, 50 linemen down there at one time, and it's very well controlled, very very strict rules. So it's not like a storm when you got 50 linemen together at night where things all hell can break loose. Yeah. Nothing like that's going to happen. And
I know there's one thing I wanted to chat about too, because I know you had a pretty unique old hot stick collection. And I heard that the Lazy Q owns, or the Quanta owns that now, that stick trailer. And what are they're building a museum on site as well? Is that something that's going to be open to the public, or?
I don't know about the public. The museum is actually there. They've got a curator who's basically new stuff comes in, new old stuff comes in constantly, and she's trying to catalog all that. But there's, I did have it was basically a distribution hot stick trailer with enough sticks on it to boot out three-phase structures in a row. Take your pick, how you want to do it with boot out arms or just float it out with your hot sticks. And that actually, the interesting thing about that is that hot stick trailer was bought from, I bought it off a guy named Tom Schutz, who is Dustin Schutz, who is now, I think Dustin's retired, but as is Tom, I'm sure. Yep. But that was, basically a Quanta company. It is now, was not then.
Yeah. What were the sticks like? How old are they? Are they sticks, pretty unique looking? Or?
Yeah, the sticks are, the amazing thing about that hot stick trailer, it's a Chance hot stick trailer. It's in a 1956 catalog. I included with that same catalog that trailer's in, and that catalog is in just beautiful shape. It's a museum piece itself, but those sticks are, the amazing thing about those hot sticks, and maybe A.B. Chance or whoever designed sticks are wood back then, but the working ends of those sticks, if you look at today's modern stick, like a wire tong, shotgun, well, shotguns have changed a little bit, but a wire tong, half of the sticks in there like a jumper holding tool, a link stick, except for it being wood. The hardware hasn't changed at all.
Amazing.
And it's so, that just tells me whoever invented this stuff in the first place, they really had their shit together where it's just a good design, because this day and age, everybody comes up with something better, but it's just, and Linework is evolving where there's a lot of better stuff coming out there, but that stands the test of time. I mean, stuff out there that's 50, 60 years old is just on that. Before I sold it, a buddy of mine that tests sticks up here in BC, Bear. A lot of guys might know him. He tests sticks. He come through with his testing equipment. We test all about sticks in that trailer. You go to work today and hot stick with that stuff. A lot of that stuff's unblemished. Yeah. Still got the original label on it. It's just beautiful stuff. It's actually Sitka spruce, come from the Queen Charlotte Islands. The beauty about Sitka spruce, they were so tall that there was no knots. There's not a blemish. It's just pure grain wood with not a speck of, no knots. Just beautiful stuff.
Do you have any other sorts of collectibles? It's something I've always kind of wanted to do. It's a little harder up here to get old stuff. Not like the U.S. I know I could get online and try to find some things, but do you have any more?
Just a few insulators. Not much else. I think everything. That trailer had a bunch of stuff that I had accumulated, but my idea with that trailer when I bought it was to get it out there and get people to see it. I had it at a couple of rodeos, so some of the old timers could, and really I like people to get their hands on it. The old timers, anybody, and it's in a place now where it, whenever we did a barehand class or hot stick class, we'd take the guys into that museum. They could look around and look at those sticks, and that stuff is meant for guys to get a lineman to get his hands on and look at it and appreciate that. Those guys back in the 50s actually had their shit together, and they knew what they were doing. So other stuff, no, most of it just went. I did keep a shotgun. I don't know if they don't know that or not, but I still got a wooden shotgun.
So it goes. So working with Quanta and doing some training and things like that at a place like the Lazy Q would give you, you'd see guys from all over the world really come through that place and train. And what are some things that you've noticed, or is there any advice or anything like that from things you've noticed training people from all over the place? Say?
I think one thing, and I've worked in South Africa with a lot of guys, Afrikaans and the different, like Zulu, Kosid, all kinds of different, tribal nationalities over there. And then in the training center with the guys from the Philippines, guys from South America, from Peru, Colombia, and I'm missing another one there. Doesn't matter, but I think the mentality of a lineman is it just seems strange to me that you're all kind of cut from the same cloth. And one thing I do remember, like when I had my time over working in South Africa with those guys, was North America linemen kind of identify with, after hours guys like, let's say drinking beer. I like beer, but over there it's brandy. But I do remember a lineman is a lineman. Over there, we'd be stringing, and I told them guys, like, string in your own language. I can pick up enough to know what's going on, but one thing that's universal lineman was wire moving, hold the pole. Yeah, it's always in English. It's always in those words. And just instead of beer, it was brandy at night. But the mentality of those guys, and you've worked with a lot of those guys. Most of them are over here now. Yeah. Just a terrific bunch of guys, tough as nails, and just honest, hard-working dudes. I really, really respected those guys.
What type of work were you doing over there?
All kinds of different work, but the time I spent with those guys was we were in a camp in Mozambique, and it was an emergency restoration, de-energized of one of the DC poles that come out of a generating plant in Mozambique and fed into Apollo substation in South Africa. So it was a real revenue for Mozambique, which is a really poor third world country. So we were really under the gun to try and get it on as quick as possible. And it's being in a third world country and supply chain and everything that we needed there. It was your typical 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of project. It was frustrating as hell. And it was hot and humid and just really, it doesn't matter where you are. You forget all about what country and where in the world you are. Just shitty hot, super tough work is shitty hot, super tough work. Doesn't matter where you're from.
I know the story a little bit, but how were you cooling off?
Oh, yeah. When we were up in the air, so we had a helicopter in camp, so it was an A-star, and then Bronte, he was a New Zealander transplanted into South Africa, was our pilot. Good guy, good pilot. And what we used to do is we'd have all the rigging in one tower. There'd be 4 of us up there, and so I send the 2 guys to the next tower, and then Dion, the guy I was with, Zulu from South Africa, just a terrific lineman. Him and I would stay back, send all the rigging to those guys, and then those guys, before they got to the tower, they'd take them, and the Limpopo River that flooded, that took out these towers, had receded back to its original banks of confinement. And basically, we'd find just a deep spot in the river, and just Bronte would just drop us into the water, hold you there for a couple of seconds, pull you out, and then fly you to your next tower. And then when we flew out, I actually got a video of this with Dion there, and Dion don't swim, and I had the GoPro on my helmet, and it just dropped us right in the river, and all you can see is bubbles. and we come out of the water just screaming, and flew us to the tower. So that's how we would. It was about 10 minutes of refreshment in a incredibly long hot day.
in an alligator infested or a crocodile infested.
That's another story. So our camp was right beside a little village there, and so there was a town pump for running water, but the pilot and the engineers wouldn't stay in the camp. It wasn't up to their standards, so they would fly up to the border of Mozambique and South Africa, and they drive across to a camp in Punta Maria. So we stay there. So the pilots or the helicopters leave at 3 p.m, and so if we were on the other side of the river, which when we were stringing, I think there's about 5 of us or 6 of us are over there. Yeah, the Limpopo River is a crocodile. I wouldn't say infested, but we're flying all day long. You can see that the big crocs laying on the sunning themselves, so they're there. So like end of the day, no shit, like you just take your pants off and put them over your head. We would all wade across that river to the other side, and nothing ever happened. But I used to say to Dion, I said, I know them crocodiles like I, so I'm okay if I'm walking beside you. And he would laugh. Yeah, that was, that's the kind of stuff where, it's just flat out, like on this side over here, like it just ain't going to happen, so it was, I feel pretty grateful to be in a place where, you can get away. I won't say get away. It's not like we are not safe in any respect at all, but it was just the rules are so relaxed where you do things in a safe way, but you're not going to find them written down in any kind of a manual on the methods we were using. How's that so?
It's a good thing for this is what I like talking to people that have gone out and in the world and been places and done some things. This is why I tell guys getting into the trade, like so many of them just want to get into their, and that's fine too if they just want to get into their district and hunker down, and that's where they want to spend a career. There's nothing wrong with that, but for any of us that are a little bit more of a gypsy soul, and I encourage them to get out. Go out and go somewhere else in the world and experience line work done. Like you said, we're cut from the same cloth no matter where you are, but you get to see some different ways of doing things, and you get to make decisions on how you're going to do things to keep yourself safe and other people safe, and how you're going to get the job done in different parts of the world. It's kind of neat to be a part of. It's been cool to be a part of that myself, the little bit that I have done.
Oh yeah.
I want to get in, I'll shift gears a little bit and into, because it's not all about line work all the time. I want to get into some things and ways maybe you decompress, and some of your, I know you've got a couple of pretty cool hobbies, and motorbiking is definitely something and been a passion of yours your whole life. But you do have one unique story that involved a Harley in Prince George and some lightning. I'd like you to share that with us, because that's a pretty good one. So
this one actually combines line work, hot sticking 500 kV, lightning, and actual a funeral for one of the senior guy in our crew who passed away of cancer. And Harley Davidson. So I'll start this where it started. Was we were sticking 500 on it'd be 501 of the 3 circuits coming out of northern BC. So we're in I'd say about 80 miles north of Prince George. So we're in, I think, Bear Lake area, and we're sticking 500. We got the west phase done. The weather, it's a north-south line, so the weather comes in from the west. And so I was, back in those days, you could talk to the control center, and they used to be able to let me know when lightning was coming. They would had access to the forestry, and the forestry could tell where the lightning was hitting. So they would, every 10 minutes give me an update where the lightning was. So, and then if I could hear thunder at all, and I could see the front coming from the west, and you could usually feel the wind pick up, and then I would get the guys off the line, so you could hear it coming, and then, talk to them. So I got the guys down. We had all our rigging hung on the center face, but we didn't have the weight of the bundle, so we're talking strain poles, and our work sticks were hanging up there. So I got the guys down to ride out the storm, and it rained. It was just a deluge of rain for an hour or so. So we're finally, the kind of sun comes out, and I think it's about 1:32 in the afternoon. We got a good hour and a half windshield time to get back to Prince George. And so I got two other guys and myself. I said, well, let's just get up there. Let's get the rigging off of there, and we'll shut her down for the day. So we headed up there, and there was a guy named Glenn, and a guy named Tim was out of Saskatchewan, and I think Glenn was from central BC somewhere. Doesn't matter. And so Glenn went over the center face. Tim was on the hand line, and I was kind of in the middle. So how he's the daisy chain. So Glenn would bring it off, hand it to me, and I'd hand it to Tim and down the hand line. And we just kind of got ourselves in position there, and it kind of clouded over. And it just we're just right there. So it's a small guide tower, the tower, an A tower. So, and we're all just. Basically, Tim and Glenn are kind of inside the box of the tower, and I'm basically belted into the tower, but on the outside of the box of the tower. And just out of nowhere just came this big flash, and almost instantaneously followed by just a thunderclap, like as loud as you ever heard. And I felt that the flash went over and hit the circuit beside us. It's a corridor of 3 500 lines. And of course, you just about shit yourself, and you could taste the corona. Like, it was just like, holy fuck. So we got our shit together, and Glenn was right there. I could see him. Glenn, you good? He thumbs up. He's good. And Tim, I kind of scramble over to Tim there. Are you okay? And he's kind of like, I put my hand on his shoulder. Are you okay? We got to get out of here. He goes, okay, I'm good. I said, let's get this shit down. So we got all the sticks over like double time. Down to the ground, and we got down at the bottom of the tower. And the guys in the ground are just going, holy crap. Like, they basically said that we just disappeared in like a ball of fire.
So it actually hit your tower?
Hit our tower. Well, that's what, like they said, we were just gone. Like, it was just, and of course, after the flash, everybody's eyes are getting adjusted again, because the sky is dark. And they're expecting the worst. And, we're all still standing there, so 3 cheers. Okay, let's got the stuff to the ground, got on the ground, and you're just feeling like super lucky or whatever. And just head into town. Prince George, like I say, it's about an hour and a half away. So we got into town. It was before 6 o'clock, and I went down to. I'm a big KTM fan, and it was KTM shop. There's a Harley shop right next door. So I was looking at dirt bikes and talking dirt bike, and I wandered over to the Harley shop, and they were having this Big Brothers, Big Sisters Harley Fat Boy. This is 2001. And it's a nice looking green bike, and the tickets for $20. And I thought, Jesus, I'm feeling pretty lucky today. I'll just buy this ticket here. So I bought a ticket, and then that old Fat Boy sat on it. I went, yeah, this is a pretty cool bike. And the dude behind the counter there, the owner says, hey, get off that bike. That's our draw bike. We don't want it marked up. I said, don't worry, I'm gonna win this bike. And he goes, yeah. Anyway, so what I didn't mention is a senior guy in our crew. His name is Ralph Belrose. He passed away, and so after that day I just described, where I was in the shop, I'm home, and it's a funeral, and I'm just getting changed, and I'm heading back into town to Ralph's funeral, or a celebration of life. And I got a phone call, and I thought, oh shit! And it was like, is Mr. McLennan? Is this Mr. McLennan? I said, yes. He said, oh, this is Big Brothers, Big Sisters. And I said, look, if I won the gas or whatever that was, if I won a Harley, great. The other stuff, I'll just donate back. I said, yeah, we pleased to inform you just won this Harley Davidson. So I go, holy shit. So now I'm going to a funeral, and you're supposed to be pretty low key, guy in my crew, and a great old guy. And then I'm totally stoked about this Harley. So anyway.
What a dichotomy, hey? going to a celebration of life with a smile on your face.
Yeah, geez. A lineman's funeral and you win Harley Davidson and had a few beers that night. So, I mean, you captured all three right there, right?
So I wouldn't try that at home, but hey.
Yeah. So that one there, the lightning story, like, I know you got an audience out there, and I know linemen are inclined to bullshit, and I do sometimes. This is one of them stories. This is not a word of a lie. This happened. This is the real deal. You can ask anybody that knows me, that was with me. It happened.
Is your buddy looking out for you?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So motorbikes and biking and of all kinds has kind of been a passion, a lifelong passion for you.
Yeah.
When and how did that start? Like, what was your first bike?
My first bike. So when you're a kid, I'm not sure about you. You probably were out in the country. We were near a power line, so there's kids that had like mini bikes and stuff, and I didn't, and my parents weren't big on motorcycles, so I realized that, if I'm going to have one, I'm going to have to go to work and get my own. So I did. My first bike was a 72 360 RT2 Yamaha. It was just a big two-stroke enduro bike. And then, from there on, I've never not had a bike. Yeah.
So getting into that, what I was talking about before is like ways to decompress. And I know that's this... it's something I got into talking a little bit about, like mental health with and physical health with my last guest, and I've done it a few times. Like, is this something for you? It's kind of been like an outlet to decompress from, because line life can be stressful, and you're on the road all the time, away from your family. It's a mentally stressful job. It's physically stressful. Has it been kind of like an outlet and a release for you to just get on a bike and,
Sure, I'm going to say it is all of that. I never looked at it to be that. It's just something that I've always done. Like I raced motorcycles from, I don't know, I'd say in my 20s, and then between, like, I've road raced like coast to coast in Canada and down in actually SIR and in Seattle, and even as far east as Shubenacadie in Nova Scotia. And a lot of road racing when I was in Ontario working Linework for 2 years out there. Basically, Linework funded my road racing effort.
That's awesome.
Those 2 years for me, my life is more around racing motorcycles and focusing on that and generating revenue through Linework. So I don't know if that's a release.
Well, no, but it kind of ties into some other things I've talked about where things this trade is so unique in that way that you can go and work a job, you can save up some money and fund something else that you want to do with that. If you're good with your dollars and cents, you have that ability, and you can kind of just, check out of a job and check into the hall and say, hey, I want to go work somewhere else 2 months from now or 3 months from now or 1 month or whatever. But you get that ability in Linework, and it's kind of unique. You can't just do that in every other job, every office job. I know you can't just leave and come back in 3 months.
It's special that way. Working out of the Union Hall, that was, those days there wasn't much work out in BC back then. So Ontario, I did work a year or two in Saskatchewan before that, but there wasn't much money out there. Ontario's better, and bigger place and just more happening. But it is that kind of a job where you could make enough money to, and a lot of guys have done it, set themselves up in another line of work and kind of work both. But that for me was just a couple of years there. But the whole thing, and I continued on when I came back out west. Again, Linework, I was up in Dawson Creek, Mile Zero, the Alaska Highway. I road raced for a couple more years working distribution there for that utility, and that was good.
So no doubt to have a career like you've had and still are a part of, staying physically and mentally fit is something that you've had to do. What kind of things have you done, or do you have any advice for people out there? Stay active or stay fit. Like I know for myself, I couldn't have done the things I did in the trade if I wasn't physically fit and mentally fit as well. It's a big part of what we do, and I think people really need to pay attention to it. So what things have you done?
That one right there, just, I guess it probably from hockey and training for hockey, and just I never quit training or working out. I would say that like for line work, there's been a few crashes, or how would you say, like broken bones and stuff, and so I think being fit enabled me to recover way quicker. And then just by staying with it, with a bunch of injuries like racing motorcycles and some pretty nasty get-offs, that I was always able to get back to a place where where I can function, to this day just normal. Even though I think I've broken, well, I know for I have broken, if you count fingers and toes, but there's a major one leg. I think I broke my right leg 3 times now.
Wow.
I broke an arm, separated shoulder, fractured 2 vertebrae. I punctured lungs, and I've been hurt pretty. I know what pain feels like.
Yeah.
and the recovery, just hitting the gym and just taking things slow. And like you said, for me in my advanced years now, like I still stay fit, kind of a CrossFit style of workout. I'm not a CrossFit person in the gym every day doing that. I don't think I could handle that, but I use a lot of that stuff, a lot of flexibility and mobility, and just stay, keep my cardio up. And there's not too many guys even 30 years younger than me can keep up to, a lot of things that I do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've noticed that for sure. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Is there any other closing comments or things that you feel we didn't talk about that you'd like to mention?
No, I will say one thing, and it's back to line work. And it worked. I'm going to say I met him out in Terrace, transmission guy. He's an American, and I don't know if he's still around anymore. His name is Jerry Root, but he had a saying that always stuck with me, and he says, "The impossible takes just a little bit longer for a lineman." And I thought that was one of the coolest things I ever heard, and I use it every day.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again for being on the show. I appreciate you coming on, and I think people are going to really learn a few things from this and enjoy it.
That was cool. I enjoyed it, and thank you very much, Ryan.